I'm brewing a fruity sour beer, but I'm replacing all of my brewing water with orange Gatorade Zero. Lots and lots of Gatorade Zero. Then I'm making adjustments to try to get the mash to convert and the beer to sour, and serving it to Norm, who has no idea how the beer was made. Will a Gatorade Gose actually brew? And can Norm guess what it is?
Gatorade! Really? No!
I'm Martin Keane, and this is the Brülosophy Show. This episode is sponsored by the Brew Lab. More on that later.
I know what you're thinking. This doesn't sound like the best idea, but hear me out. Here's why I think Gatorade, instead of water, could make a pretty good Gose. I mean, think about what these sports drinks are like. They're full of electrolytes and sodium and fruity flavors, right? And they're quite acidic. Well, a Gose has quite a low pH. It's quite acidic. It's a sour beer. And you typically add sea salt to a Gose, so there's plenty of salt in this already, and often you will fruit the Gose with some kind of fruit juice. It already has fruit flavouring in it. I think this could really work out, and then you have the extra benefit of the electrolytes and so forth, so it might be quite refreshing, which a Gose is supposed to be as well. The first thing I need to do when I'm using this as brewing water is to really think about what is in here. Well, it's Gatorade Zero, so there's no sugar, so there's nothing for the yeast to chew on. I'm going to have to get that through, well, the usual way that you do that in the mash. The artificial sweetener here is not going to be of any interest to the yeast. All right, this is my digital density meter. It's how I measure the gravity of my wort. So I'm curious to see what the density of this is. So it does have something in it. I'm getting a reading of 1.002. Now, how about the pH of this? This is going to be important because we need the mash pH to be something in the range of 5.2 to 5.6, or at least close to that, so we can get some enzymatic activity during the mash. And I'm at 3.5. That's going to be a pretty harsh environment. Ironically, at the end of brewing this, I'm going to be adding lactobacillus to get down to 3.5 pH, but I don't want to start there. So we need to raise the pH of this up. Now there are a few options for that. I've got baking soda. This is sodium bicarbonate, but sodium. There's already quite a lot of sodium in this. 270 milligrams of sodium. That's 12% of your daily allowance. It's really salty already. I don't want to add more salt. So the other option is this, calcium carbonate, better known as chalk. Let's try just adding some into this bottle. I'm gonna use my teaspoon. Let's just put 1 teaspoon's worth in and give it a shake. And when you look at that, brought it up to nearly 6. Now, how much Gatorade do I need? This is how much Gatorade I'm gonna use. So each one of these requires some chalk. I'm going to leave these last 3 untreated, just in case I've overdone it here.
All right, time to add them to the kettle. Just going to give this a quick stir. Let's grab a sample. 6.0, look at that. It seems to have worked. So now it's time to get this up to mash temperature, and we can actually start adding some beer grains. The ingredients for this beer are nice and simple. I'm just using 3 pounds of wheat malt and 1.5 pounds of Pilsner malt, and I'm using modern Pilsner from Epiphany Craft Malts. And here is the grist, Gatorade, meat barley, and wheat. That is not a sight you see every day, an orange mash. So I'm going to mash this for about an hour, 148 Fahrenheit, 64 Celsius. My mash pH ended up being around 5.8 pH, so pretty good. It's been mashing now for an hour, so let's take a sample and see where we're at. And the gravity is 1043, which is what I was aiming for. So the mash converted, pretty cool. Now the way I'm going to sour this Gose is by kettle souring, which means the wort's going to be sitting here for a day or so, that means I need to pasteurize it. This is a lot easier to remove than normal. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to bring this to 180 Fahrenheit or 82 Celsius and hold it here for about 10 minutes. I've chilled the wort back down now to 95 Fahrenheit, and that's the temperature I'm going to use for kettle souring. How am I going to sour? My old friend, Good Belly. This contains lactobacillus, and I'm using the raspberry and blackberry version, although I've found in my experience that it doesn't really matter which flavor you use, it doesn't really impart much taste, but it should certainly help sour this beer. So we want to get this pH all the way down to around 3.5 pH. So to do that, I'm going to add about 150 milliliters of Good Belly. Put it in. And I'm going to keep my temperature controller on to 95 Fahrenheit because that's the temperature I need to keep this wort in order for the lactobacillus to do its thing. Also going to make sure that we haven't got any air in here. So I've replaced my lid with a lid that doesn't have a top. So this is kind of blanked out. And I'm just going to use some plastic wrap to create a seal. As for how long to wait, well, I'm just going to take a measurement probably this time tomorrow and see where we are on the pH. Cheers. It's not bad. While the wort is souring, I want to tell you quickly about today's sponsor, the Brew Lab podcast.
Welcome to the Brew Lab.
Each week, Brülosophy contributor Kate Job goes into the lab to discuss brewing science with a broad cast of experts, and Kate is frequently joined by co-host Jordan Folks as they apply the science to their own brewing practices. Recent episodes have discussed the effects alcohol has on the perceived refreshing character of beer and the impact kilning temperature has on hop quality. Check it out wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let's fast forward a few days and check in on the beer. Well, it's been 3 days, which is longer than I was expecting. I've been monitoring the pH, taking a reading every 12 hours or so. Got down to 4 pretty quickly and then kind of stalled out at 3.7, and it's been stuck there for over a day. I actually added some more Good Belly in. Will not budge from 3.7. That's okay, that's within the range, but I would have liked to go a little bit lower, and I'm quite surprised that it wasn't able to do that. Anyway, the next stage is to bring this to a boil, and that's going to serve 2 purposes. The first purpose is it will kill off the Good Belly lactobacillus bugs that I've added in here. So the souring process has now ended. This is boiling, it's done. But the second reason is so that, of course, I can add in some hops. Gose, not a very hoppy style. I am using Hallertau Mittelfeuer as my bittering hop of choice. And I'm just going to get 6 or 7 IBU from this. I have 10 grams. And because I don't need to really do a super long boil for this, I'm just boiling for 15 minutes. With 5 minutes left in the boil, I added some crushed up coriander seeds, about 10 grams of those, into the boil. And at this point I would normally add some sea salt as well for a Gose, but given how salty the Gatorade is to begin with, I figured I'd skip that. I then chilled the wort down and transferred to my fermenter. Now I am adding the yeast. I'm using this. This is Imperial Yeast Dita, it's G03, and I'm going to add this and ferment at 68 Fahrenheit or 20 Celsius. A couple of weeks later, I pressure transferred the beer to a keg. My original gravity of 1042 had dropped to 1.015, indicating a 3.5% beer. So hey, it fermented. But, well, how did it turn out? It's not very clear. I didn't add any findings to this. It looks like beer.
It does. It looks very much like beer.
Check one.
Yep.
Let's see what we get on the aroma.
Heavily carbonated beer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Heavily
Okay.
carbonated.
So let's just give it a whiff?
Yeah, give it a whiff.
Oh, yeah. But first impression, I'm smelling dill pickle.
Really?
Yep.
Dill pickle.
Dill pickle. And maybe pickled red onion.
I wouldn't say it's a particularly appealing smell, to be honest, unless you enjoy pickle in your beer.
Right. Right. And I love a nice tart, dill pickle.
We have not tasted this. I have not tasted this ahead of time.
I certainly haven't, yeah.
And I was saying to Norm, to entice him over, I think maybe nobody ever has tried a beer quite like this.
Okay.
So
that's huge.
So let's be the first.
Okay, let's be the first. Okay, cheers.
Cheers.
I'm getting actually a little bit of a sweet balsamic vinegar taste from this, and I'm enjoying it. I really am enjoying it because a good balsamic vinegar, just all by itself, you can just drizzle it on bread. This is really appealing from a flavor standpoint.
So what do you think on the pucker standpoint? How
not very
sour?
puckery at all. No, the sour on this very moderate.
I did not use any water when I made this beer. I replaced the water with something else.
I can't even venture a guess as to what you might have replaced it with. Being the mad scientist that you are, I'm gonna go out on a lemon and Gatorade? I don't know what.
Gatorade.
Really?
Yes.
No. You use Gatorade?
Orange Gatorade Zero.
Wow. And the reason I said that is because on the finish, it has a little bit of a... You taste a little Gatorade.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I can't believe you got it.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. And the people that are watching this aren't going to believe for a second that I didn't know it was Gatorade, but...
You did not.
So I'm calling this a success. I was fully prepared for this to be a tipper, but this is still on tap at my bar. Patreon members can view a little bit of bonus footage where I talk about 2 things I'd do differently next time. Visit patreon.com/Brülosophy to view that. But I'm really pleased how this turned out. Now, this is not my first time replacing brewing water with a different liquid. I brewed a caramel apple ale using gallons of apple juice, and you can see how that turned out in this video here. Thanks for watching.